Well, we've done 5 Japanese Game Boy games you don't need to know Japanese for. Let's do Super Famicom next. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and this is the Retro Hunting Adventures.
Yo, this is MegaMan, and you need to rock and or roll on over to Mr. MegaManFan's YouTube channel, because it's all that rush to make it happen. Peace!
Now, obviously, there are more than 5 Super Famicom games that you can play without knowing Japanese, but the purpose of this video will be to show you ones that I own, that I've actually played, that I can recommend to you based on ownership. I could do a future video where I show you ones that are only available to me through playing them on an SD card through SD to SNES, but not today. Right now we're starting with Exhaust Heat, and it's remarkable that this game didn't come out in North America. I can't explain it, because everything here is just numbers and English. As you can see, best time, total time, lap time, the gauge that shows you your speed and what gear you're in, that's all in English too. It boggles the mind that they wouldn't even try to port this. In fact, playing it, other than the fact that you don't have weapons and you don't attack the other drivers with them, it looks and feels a bit like Mario Kart. It's got the same sprite scaling, the same Mode 7 type rotation. Everything here would have been comfortable and familiar to a gamer. There is a pit row that you just saw there as I crossed the start-finish line, and you can pit to change your tires and adjust things. And as you saw at the beginning of the clip, you can also accessorize your car using the money that you earn from winning races. The better you finish, the more prize money you get, the better you can upgrade your car. So it's almost a cross between RC Pro-Am and Mario Kart. I mean, in RC Pro-Am, you're earning some of the upgrades by driving over them as opposed to buying them, but it does have that same leveling up feel where each time around you're getting better for the next race that you're going to enter. So this, to me, was an ideal candidate for North American release, but if I had to gauge any reason that would make sense and I would stick with it why they didn't do it, it's just that Sega didn't have that kind of budget. We've seen this with other games that they published on other consoles, but Sega didn't have the muscle of like a Konami or a Capcom. They just couldn't put out everything in North America like some of their competitors could from Japan. So sadly, Exhaust Heat got left on the scrap heap, but it's a very cheap pickup. It only cost me $1 before shipping. Probably it's a super common game and not very much in demand in Japan, so pick up a copy of Exhaust Heat if you want some Mario Kart meets RC Pro-Am style racing. I really don't feel like you can go wrong with this one. It's fun to play, it's fun to level up. The racing handles really well. It's not poor controls. Even the money that you earn at the end of the race is in American. It's like they knew they wanted to put this out in the American market, and then they just simply didn't have the budget to. That's all I can say is they were prepared to do it, and then they just couldn't. But it's a great game, so please check it out. Next up is Mario and Wario, a game that's obscure in North America, but not too hard to come across from a Japan seller, and I own it complete in box, but I keep this loose copy out because it's okay, and I want to play. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm using a slightly modified version of the original ROM, which has been configured to allow you to use the joypad instead of a mouse. But if you want to play this, all you really need is the mouse that comes with Mario Paint. If you've got that, you're good to go. You've just got to file off those tabs on either side of your Super Nintendo's cartridge port, and once those are removed, it can accept PAL carts, Japanese carts, any region carts. There's no such thing as region lockout when it comes to the cartridges. There's only a physical barrier. This game will remind a lot of you of the Mario Minis March Again series of games. if it didn't inspire them, it definitely was created with a similar mindset. I would say inspired. I would think they played Mario and Wario and thought, hey, let's have these minis march around levels and direct them which way to go. You're indirectly controlling Mario in this case because Wario is a bastard and he dropped a bucket on his head and poor Mario can't see. So you use this fairy to go and change the blocks so that when he walks over them, he doesn't fall to his doom like he just fell there. And if he walks over spikes, obviously that's bad news. So you've got to change the blocks whenever appropriate and keep Mario constantly marching towards the goal. Once he gets there, Luigi pops the bucket off his head and they celebrate together. And you get a time bonus for however much time is left. Even more so than Exhaust Heat, this one just astounds me that they never tried to release it. Maybe they were afraid they'd have to bundle the mouse with it and it would cost too much, but I don't think they had to because Mario Paint, according to Norm the gaming historian, was the 18th best-selling Super Nintendo game of all time. Multiple millions of copies of it were out there, so I think there was enough of an install base on the mouse that they wouldn't have had to bundle it with it to sell the game. The other thing is maybe they just didn't feel people who played Mario games wanted a puzzle platforming game. Maybe they thought that was too far out of the reach of Mario. And yet I would dispute that given the number of educational Mario games that came out like Mario is Missing. They clearly weren't afraid to put Mario in things other than side-scrolling platformers. So I feel this is a complete miss on the part of everybody involved that they had an established franchise with a very popular character, and I think Wario was well enough known as the villain from the Game Boy games that people would have understood Mario versus Wario in a game like this. One of the more interesting puzzles that they present to you is these timer blocks. If you select them too early, they can go out before Mario walks over them, so you have to wait until he's approaching them to turn them on. Otherwise, they're going to disappear before he gets there, and you're in big trouble then. And of course, there are coin blocks scattered throughout certain levels too. You have to click on them to collect the coins, but in doing so, you might risk Mario getting to a ledge and falling off it if you're too busy collecting coins instead of helping him. There are also breakable blocks that you have to click on multiple times for Mario to be able to walk through that path. Or you can leave them unbroken if you're trying to figure out what to do and you need more time, so you just let the block sit there for a minute and then you decide what to do once you're ready. So there's strategy involved in the Mario and Wario game, just like the minis march again. I think you should check this one out, whether you play it through emulation using a joypad hack, or whether you get the original game and use a mouse to play it. It's fun either way. And boy, again, it boggles the imagination that they didn't even try to release this in North America. They had the perfect audience for it. Mario fans, people who played the Wario games on Game Boy, millions of Mario Paint mouses. They should have tried. This next one, however, may be the biggest crime of all. Rockman and Fort, also known as Mega Man and Bass. Not Bass, Bass. This one is a very late Super Nintendo release from 1998. Unfortunately, that fact alone doomed this game in North America because by then, Nintendo 64 was on the market, PlayStation was on the market, Sega Saturn was on the market. There was just no incentive for them to localize and port this, even though it would have been so easy to do. There is so little English. The title screen, a menu, that's it. This is a Mega Man game. You don't need to know Japanese to play a Mega Man game. You run, you jump, you shoot your buster, you kill the bosses, you collect their weapons, then you kill the other bosses with their weapons, whichever ones they're weak to. You know how to play Mega Man games. Everybody knows how to play Mega Man games. I'm freaking Mr. Mega Man fan. Of course, I'm gonna love Rockman and Fort. They did finally get around to making a localized version of it for Game Boy Advance, but I got some bad news for you. There is major screen crunch when you're playing it on Game Boy Advance. It really hampers the game. It makes it way more difficult than it needs to be. It's something that I must own as Mr. Mega Man fan. It has to be part of my collection, but I can't recommend it in that form. You really need the Super Famicom version, Rockman and Fort. Put it in your Super Nintendo with those cartridge port region lockout tabs removed, and you're going to have a so much better experience. And if you can't do that, if you don't want to import a copy, then I'm not saying I encourage piracy. I would never say that, but try it in emulation, okay? Try it and then think about purchasing it. And I think once you try it, you'll be convinced to buy it because it's just straight up Mega Man goodness. I don't know what more I can add to you that the gameplay footage doesn't say itself. This museum level is such a classic to me. This opening section where Mega Man is revisiting all of the enemies from his past and stage layouts from his past. It is such a great introduction to Rockman and Fort that it just pumps you up for the rest of the game. You're so excited to go on this new adventure with Mega Man. This canonically deserves to be recognized right in there with Mega Man 7, 8, 9, 10. It needs to be known as part of the series, but it's completely overlooked except by the hardcore Mega Man fans like me. So please, with all of the urgency I can muster, you've got to play Rockman and Fort. Do it for all the Mega Maniacs who never got a physical release of this game in North America, but maybe someday we will. Now we're going in alphabetical order here, so the next one up on the list is Super Bomberman Panic Bomber World. But between you and me, I like to think of this game as Super Bomberman Puyo Puyo World, and you're going to see why in just a moment. This game is the demented brainchild of someone who looked at Bomberman and looked at Puyo Puyo and said, but what if? What if Puyo Puyo, but you could blow shit up? What if Bomberman, but he was in a Puyo Puyo game? Either way you look at it, that's what they did. They combined those two things together like peanut butter and jelly. You know, I actually don't like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that much. I know it's like a classic, but I've never really liked that combination. I like jelly on toast. I like peanut butter on toast. I'd rather have them separately. I'm not that big into peanut butter cups either. I like dark chocolate peanut butter cups once in a while, but just regular peanut butter cups like Reese's, don't really go for that. But I do go for this combination because I like the idea that the Puyo Puyo blocks have been turned into Bomberman heads. That's just amusing in and of itself. But it's the same kind of gameplay. You match up the colors to make the blocks disappear. The more of them you chain together, the bigger the points you score, the bigger the drop you score on your enemy in terms of blocks they have to break, like the forced blocks that you need a special item to clear, or you need to hit a combo next to those blocks to make them vanish. And they push up underneath your opponent as you're going, so the more combos you make, the better. And chaining them is always ideal. If you can put a block on top of a block, and when it vanishes, that color drops down onto the block underneath and makes it vanish, those combos are how you really win at Puyo Puyo, or in this case, Super Bomberman Panic Bomber World. And once in a while, you'll get the bombs that allow you to clear connected lines going across and up and down, just like in Bomberman. And then if you get a big enough bomb, you can take out every single item on the screen in one fell swoop. You have to earn that up over time by getting more and more combos until the big bomb unlocks, and then when it drops into the playfield and you wipe out the whole screen at once, it is so satisfying to do. and it causes a huge pileup on your opponent's side, whether it's a versus two player or the AI opponent. You basically get a winning combination at that point. It's unbeatable. You can force your way through the menus without knowing Japanese, so whether loose or complete, consider adding Super Bomberman Panic Bomber World to your collection. You will not regret it. And since we're already talking about Puyo Puyo, let's look at a Japanese Puyo Puyo game that never came out in North America. This is Super Puyo Puyo, which is pretty obvious from the label that I put on the end. Now, this is actually one of the oldest Super Famicom titles in my collection, and there's a funny backstory to that. I'll tell you why. When I originally bought Rockman and Fort, I didn't know that it was so easy to adapt to Super Nintendo to play import games. I bought the game, complete in box, and then I was like, oh crap, I don't have a Super Famicom. How am I going to play this? I need a cartridge adapter. I need a Super Famicom. I need something. So I bought a Super Famicom off eBay, and it came with the console, the controllers, a generic power supply, and several games. 2 of them were Ranma 1.5 games. The other one was Super Puyo Puyo. And I love Ranma 1.5, don't get me wrong, but those games are pretty inscrutable if you don't have Japanese. You're going to need an English language patch. Whereas Puyo Puyo games, pretty self-explanatory. The rules are exactly the same as I gave you with Super Bomberman Panic Bomber World, minus the bombs. You don't get to drop the bomb in this one. You just have to make the combos, stack up the blocks, push your opponent over the edge, and win the round. The faster you can do it, the more bonus points you will score. You've got helpful little indicators up on the very top of the screen that tell you when the garbage blocks are coming. They tell your opponent when they're coming too, but if it's an AI opponent, that hardly matters. Doesn't matter if they could actually read it or not, because it's a computer anyway. It's reading it in code. It's programmed to understand that it's in trouble. You can see it's panicking right now. It's like, oh my god, this stack is getting so high. What do I do? Well, you're not going to be able to do anything because I'm sending more garbage blocks your way. It's cruel. I'm making an artificial computer opponent suffer. They're about ready to burst into tears from panicking that I just keep on piling up the blocks and won't stop. But it's all phony. There's no real emotion there other than what emotion you're giving to it, reading into it, the facial expressions playing it. So just take some joy out of it that you're winning and try not to feel too bad about it, okay? It's just a game. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. As always, thank you for watching the Retro Hunting Adventures. I hope these are 5 Super Famicom games that you'll consider picking up and playing for yourself. They're not super expensive and they're really fun.